Well, we're already an hour in now. Don't want to stretch everybody's time frame too much, and everybody needs sleep. But just to throw out there, since I've seen that it's caused quite a lot of discussion lately, like the topic of veganism and healthy food always is quite a touchy subject. Does anybody know why this is? I'm just very curious why this subject always brings about so much discussion between movement members.
It all depends on how aggressive people are towards people that are not vegans, or vice versa.
I agree on that. I think it's the first impression that's very important, and I think it's a feedback loop, or both sides are kind of repowering themselves in their. One side is pushing his activism, for example, veganism, and the other side is pushing the ignorance. And it's a battle between those people who are thinking that are doing already better than others, and they are already changing, and hence they want to promote this kind of change to other people. And due to the lack of, or due to the level of ignorance that's out there, other peoples are just trapped in their patterns, in their current patterns. And of course, if someone comes up with a proposal and shouts at you, then you're not going to then you're not willing to understand. And if somebody really is more kind to you and really is asking you something, then you're more willing to listen to, and you're intending to understand what this person is talking about. I think it's a battle between ego and a battle between activism.
If I can say my opinion here.
Anybody can. Go ahead, man.
Hello. I think that the thing with veganism, it's a subject that we often discussed here in Greece also. I think the problem is that people who talk about veganism only approach it from an ethical view, and every person has a different ethic, a different values, which are a result of their environment. So the question is not how a person sees it from an ethical standpoint, but what is sustainable. I think someone mentioned it in the comment section, and that is the real question. If a meat-based diet is environmentally sustainable, if if it is smart from a resource standpoint and not the ethics of it. That's what alienates people, when you attack their values and their view on the ethical part of veganism. Every person has their own opinion on whether eating meat is ethical or not. So I think that is the wrong part. We need to focus on the practical side of veganism, which is something that no one can refute. We're talking about empirical evidence.
For me, mostly is, and I thank you for your explanation and putting in context the situation in Greece. But to me, the main concern is the topic of veganism and how this relates to the movement, and what consequences it has. For example, let's put something like very extreme out there. I've seen like people quit supporting the movement just because we didn't take like a firm stance on veganism because of its supposed environmental benefits. And I felt very wrong about that, and I'll elaborate in a moment. But yeah, just putting that question out there, how do you think that veganism relates to the movement? Of what importance is it, and how does it affect our activism?
I've recently been to a a presentation about veganism, which was the lecturer was a doctor actually, and she mentioned three basic things on why people support veganism. And the first is health, according to him, personal health. The second is environmental sustainability because of the footprint that the meat industry has on the planet, and the third is ethics. And what I noticed in the Q&A, in the discussion later on, was that most people that were vegans focused only on the third aspect of it, and that's the ethics. And as Thomas said, it's a very vague term with no observable physical reference. You know, it's like capitalism, it's like democracy. You can have people have many views about what it is because it's a very abstract concept. So as far as the movement is concerned, I think it would be much more constructive. I'm not saying better. I think it would be more constructive. It could help us connect to other people if we viewed it from a health perspective, you know, the science of nutrition and the impact that this has on our environment. I think it would be much more helpful this way.
In fact, if I can add, the the livestock is the second cause of the pollution in the world. So the carbon footprint of the livestock is more than all the means of transportation altogether. So a lot of people don't talk about this because there are so many big interests behind and so big companies behind that. But if you get to see a few videos that I can put on the document, you can figure out that the environmental impact is so devastating, and it causes so much trouble to the climate change, to the people. It causes forest devastation, land devastation, and so on. So if we are talking about resources and how to manage the resources for because of we are talking about RBE. Well, we need to include this aspect of the pollution, and of course the solution is go vegan, or as someone said before, in vitro meat. But in vitro meat is not available to everybody now. So and if we can do something, is to avoid to contribute to this shame of the livestock. Plus, of course, there are all the all the ethics behind.
All right, but that was a good description. But focusing back on activism, my major concern, and then I'm stepping out of the role of hosting the meeting and stepping into how I think about it on a personal note, and personally. What I think, if I think about the topic of veganism in relation to the Zeitgeist movement, uh, and the way or our function really in society as it is today, then I don't find the discussion to be all that important at all, in the sense that we are not environmentalists per se. It's part of the train of thought, but it doesn't encompass the full train of thought, and it's not effective to relay the train of thought with that as a main focus, in terms that not a lot of people can relate to it at this point in time. So I see it as a very important discussion, don't get me wrong. I do agree that the way that our meat industry is today, and our eating habits, how wrong they are, and what kind of effect it has on society and our environment. But I do think that the whole subject will go past our true function in society as it is today.
I think if I could add on that and I'll make it short, when it comes to the relation to TZM and this topic, I think what's important to know here is that most vegans or people who are promoting this vegan lifestyle, they are talking about changing food patterns. They are talking about changing conditions. And we are also talking about that people need to change their conditioned belief system and thinking about their core beliefs and try to change it. And I think what most of these vegan people, let me say that, let me term that like this, make it wrong is that they are expect other people to quit from one day to another their conditions that they were trained during their lifetime, and that isn't possible. So it would be a better way if they would talk about the tendency to eat less meat because there's an industry which is creating wrong values, so this industry can live on it. For example, you have this with the cigarettes, and the industry will tell us, okay, it's cool to have a cigarette, and actually it's totally nonsense. But we are conditioned to think that it's cool, therefore we smoke. For example, you have that with the milk industry, and the industry tells us you need to drink this milk because it's good for the bones, and this is also a lie. And for example, you have the meat industry, which says, okay, you need that iron in the meat so you can get a strong man, and you have lots of protein. So first understand that we were conditioned with wrong values, and we need to try to break those conditions or indoctrinations and try to think about what we consider as normal, and the food habits it's just a typical example of that we need to change in order to change those conditions as well. And as well, like I heard before, ethics is a vague term. So I'm terming it more responsibility or taking responsibility. So if I can take responsibility on the things that I consume and that I eat, so then I do something wrong. So I must be able to, for example, watch an animal getting slaughtered, and then after that I will eat it. That's the slaughtering is part of the eating. So taking the whole chain in consideration, that would be kind of responsibility or taking responsibility, and we will be more able to change or thinking about our food patterns. And like Paul McCartney, for example, said, if every slaughterhouse would be made out of glass, the people wouldn't eat that much meat anymore. And I think what you can't do today anymore is just buying meat in the supermarket, but looking the other way when an animal gets killed. I think it's all about taking responsibility, and I think that's the most related part when it comes to the movement, in my understanding.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, Frankie, and Gilbert also, that it's an important question, and also with another guy that said that it's more constructive that if it's talked about in an environmental and in a health way, less ethical way, because it is kind of a relative ethical viewpoint to say not to consume meat because it's hurting animals. And I know I'm really simplifying it there, and of course I don't like to see the industry. No one likes to see industries treat livestock and animals that way. I think we'd all like to see a change there. But life, I mean, in the end, life feeds on life in all kinds of different ways. I mean, the entire universe, cosmic universe, is one gigantic, things feed and recycle off of each other all over the place. So it does become very relative. And then speaking of morals, and Frankie, what you were just talking about, how one of our speakers the other day came up with this great term, this great phrase, which is system contrary moral imposition. And I'll say it again, system contrary moral imposition, which is to say that you're imposing or trying to enforce or get certain morals to take hold out there into the culture, in a system which is absolutely inverse, absolutely designed against it. Crime, violence, addiction. People stand up and take this moral stance on this stuff. We shouldn't have prostitutes. We shouldn't have people, cheating and lying on documents or parking in parking spaces they shouldn't park in. They should obey the law. These are all moral stances in a system that really demands certain things of you to survive. It's a survival mode out there, competitive, tribalistic survival mode. Of course, it's dressed up all nice in this in a capitalistic structure, but make no mistake, it's a survival mode out there. And to impose certain morals, again, these industries, this is how our economic structures function. We in a way, we need these economic industries to continue on like this. You can't just up and change industry like this. So to just change it into a vegan structure to be more environmentally friendly, I get the whole direction of it. And that said, an individual can't just up and change their diet without it takes a certain amount of time to research this stuff, to do it the right way. You don't want to just go messing around with your diet if it's been working for you and you're not having any health issues. People have gotten sick from just straight up just changing to a vegan diet, and it's not something you just up and do. It takes time and energy, which is scarce. People don't have time and energy just to up and. So I get the direction of it, and I myself tend to eat more vegan stuff for the health benefits mainly. Still eat cleaner meats and whatnot. Of course, don't like to see the suffering of animals and such. But again, there's not that many vegan restaurants or options, and a lot of times it will be a little bit more expensive to travel to, or to get into to go to the grocery store to get the vegetables, to wash the vegetables, to cook the meal, to wash the dishes. A lot of times it's easier to just go out and access what you need right away, or I think you guys get the point with that. And also, I know I'm rambling on here quite a bit, but veganism, I also don't like the whole ism of it. I'm just not a big fan of isms, and kind of why the need to make it an ism? Why can't it just be a part of the evolution of human thought towards more sustainable, more healthy lifestyles? I just don't get. I know we have to call it something, but I just don't. I just would like to see the isms disappear, and it's not a solution to just say veganism is the way. And I don't know, maybe people aren't saying it's the solution out there, but I just like to see that within these veganism discussions that I see a lot online, I guess like to see more that people point out that is it that we eat meat, or is it the market? Is it the establishment preservation that preserves established industries, that keeps this stuff in place, that, like Frankie was saying, that keeps these values, the consumerist values in place, that reinforces us to eat meat and smoke and carry on certain behaviors that again, vegan people or people of that ilk are trying to overcome. So again, in the veganism discussions are great. I would just like to see that it be sourced back to the market structure, the competitive market structure, which has establishment preservations. And until you get rid of establishment, the need to preserve establishments within the current structure, we're still going to have problems like that. So I think that's kind of all I had to say about that. Thanks.
If I can add also, it's true that it's difficult to change diet and suddenly, and of course you need to be careful because you can go for some problems. But if you do it, I mean, becoming vegan is a process, as well as becoming aware of the social problems that we are talking about. So it's a process. You get into know the problem, and then you think about what you can do, and then you change your life. I've been vegetarian for 30 years, and then just 3 years ago, I became vegan, and I'm pretty healthy now, much more now than I was 30 years ago. So, and I'm strong and so on. So it's a process. It's also a consciousness choice of your life. But the main point is that we are destroying the world, the environment, and everything else because of the meat. So we need to think about, and what I usually suggest is, just think about. I don't blame anybody. I just suggest them to get conscious. This is the the main way to talk to people, because they need to begin to think about, as well as TZM and every other topic.
Just to add to what Radon said earlier about people, other people stepping up, I think it's important that if there are people out there, who know about the science of it and the nutrition stuff and the environmental sustainability, I think it's important to, step up in the movement and try to talk about these things. I don't think it's an option to leave just because you don't agree with some people here. I think it's important to be able, in a way, for us to have some disagreement, but in a way that we can talk about them and let everybody become better. If you just leave the movement, it doesn't make anyone better here. I'm just mentioning it because Gilbert said something about people leaving.
I agree with that, and sorry, but I need to add. I think that I understand the Gilbert concerns or preoccupations about the activism. And all I need to say about the veganism is, guys, I think we don't need to use that word, because some people start with emotional things, like something said before, and when you have the empiric information with studies, scientific studies, you have a real preoccupation that is sustainability of the world, and that was the reason that I posted some book from an activism from Argentina. I will post again, but it's in Spanish. The thing is, this guy put the veganism in the book is something called the veganism in the political sphere, but the whole book, all the arguments don't have relationship with emotional, with ethics, with the health or our health. Maybe touch something, but the main issue is the problem with the world, the problem with the industry, and the sustainability of the world. So when you have that, we need to get out of the duality of, if you eat meat, well, eat meat. If you don't eat meat, well, you are a veganism. No, I think there's colors in between. And for me, being a big consumer of meat, after read some book and some information, I'm trying to eat less meat, giving that for the weekends and all the stuff. But it's when people approach to this, not using the veganism word and using scientific research about what is happening with the water, for example, then you can approach the activist without that weight of ethical and all the stuff. Veganism, summarizing the idea is, I think it's not a good idea to speak about the veganism, but I agree with talk with eat less meat. That's all.
I agree that there's been some very good points made, but getting back to the central question in the last minute, actually, because we're going to end very soon, is if we relate that back to activism for the Zeitgeist movement, is that discussion really relevant at all? Is the discussion of nutrition that much of importance to the train of thought behind a resource-based or natural law resource-based economy? I mean, some have already said, like, the way that we treat animals and the way that we consume or the way that we feed ourselves is also a product of this society. I personally think that it surpasses the discussion, surpasses our goal in the sense that it's not a core subject in the sense of relaying this train of thought to other people, but it's just a personal opinion. Yeah. Again, all the respect to everybody that thinks else, but what I would like to ask everyone one is to keep the central focus and aim of the Zeitgeist movement in mind when we alienate ourselves because these discussions come up, become too intense, and get people alienated. Then we have to think about the relevance to the actual goal. And to me personally, again, the relevance of this discussion is very minimal in terms of what we want to achieve on a broader sense.
I can definitely understand this perspective, and I also can consider that, of course, we're talking about one person who's very active regarding that subject, and I know exactly who you're talking about. But like I said, I think it's the first impression that people give to other people, and if this first impression is the absolute fail, and if someone behaves like a Nazi just with his activism, and there are some vegan Nazis out there, let me deliberately use this term because they are very aggressive in shouting at other people. I think that's really the baddest or the worstest first impression that you can make, and those people aren't aware of what they're doing, but actually they are, like I said, they are shouting at the ignorance of other people because they think they are right and they are more advanced than other people, and other people won't listen because they are shouting. So this is the feedback loop that I was talking about. But related to the movement, I think changing our diet patterns is the same form of breaking indoctrinations that we use on other levels as well. For example, we are all trained to be egotistic, self-centered assholes in this kind of economic structure that we have. So what we propose with the movement's train of thought, for example, is share get some responsibility and talk to your fellow human beings and actually help your fellow human beings, because their integrity your own integrity is only as valid as theirs, or as good as theirs. So this is another form of breaking your indoctrination. So the same as getting active, get your ass up. So don't be passive anymore. It's just another example of breaking your own indoctrination. So this is now, and the core topic is take some fucking responsibility of what you're doing, and you know what I mean. So these are three examples, for example, that you can use in breaking your own indoctrinations, I think, and that's what the train of thought always also proposes, that we should be aware of ourselves, of what we are doing, and taking fucking responsibility.